Welcome to Guided Pathways 101. My name is Jess Wilkie, and I am the Director of Guided Pathways at CCRI. This video will define the Guided Pathways framework, give a brief history of Guided Pathways as a national model, make the case for why Guided Pathways, and outline Guided Pathways work at CCRI so far, and outline where we are headed next. Creating guided pathways requires managing and sustaining large-scale transformational change. The work begins with thorough planning, continues through consistent implementation, and depends on ongoing evaluation. The goals are to improve rates of college completion, transfer, and attainment of jobs with value in the labor market, and to achieve equity in those outcomes. This infographic was created by the AACC Pathways Project and researchers at the Community College Research Center, Teachers College at Columbia University, to help new Pathways colleges begin to institute meaningful and transformational change. A separate file containing this infographic is available next in this course. Now we will look a little closer at a few pieces of this graphic. There are four thematic pillars of the Guided Pathways model: clarify the paths, help students get on a path, help students stay on their path, and ensure students are learning. First, clarify the paths. Map all programs to transfer and career and include these features. Simplify students' choices with default program maps developed by faculty and advisors to show students a clear pathway to completion, further education, and employment in fields of importance to the region. Establish transfer pathways through alignment of pathway courses and expected learning outcomes with transfer institutions to optimize applicability of community college credits to university majors. Help students choose and enter a pathway. Require these supports to make sure students get the best start. Bridge K-12 to higher education by assuring early remediation in the final year of high school through the application of courseware technology in strong K-12 and higher ed partnerships. Redesign traditional remediations as an on-ramp to a program of study, which helps students explore academic and career options from the beginning of their college experience, aligns math and other foundation skills coursework with a student's program of study, and integrates and contextualizes instruction to build academic and non-academic foundation skills throughout the college-level curriculum, particularly in program gateway courses. This overview is excerpted from a longer unpublished document developed by the Community College Research Center and the AACC Pathways Project. Finally, provide accelerated remediation to help very poorly prepared students succeed in college-level courses as soon as possible. Help students stay on a path. Keep students on track with these supports. Support students through a strong advising process, embedded and ongoing in the pathway experience, and supported by appropriate technology to help students make informed choices, strengthen clarity about transfer and career opportunities at the end of their chosen college path, ensure they develop an academic plan with predictable schedules, monitor their progress, and intervene when they go off track. Embed academic and non-academic support. Ensure that students are learning. Use these practices to enrich and assess student learning. Establish program-level learning outcomes aligned with the requirements for success in employment and further education in a given field, and apply the results of learning outcomes assessment to improve the effectiveness of instruction across programs. Integrate group projects, internships, and other applied learning experiences to enhance instruction and student success in courses across programs of study. Ensure incorporation of effective teaching practice throughout the pathways. Research and experience in the field indicate that the following capacities are essential for motivating and supporting higher education institutions and systems to undertake the broad-scale institutional reforms involved in implementing guided pathways effectively and at scale. Leadership, demonstrating skills for managing and sustaining large-scale transformational change. Broad and authentic engagement of college faculty and staff, particularly advisors, in the design, implementation, evaluation, and ongoing improvement of pathways for students. Institutional will and capacity to use data and evidence to design academic and career pathways, monitor student progress, and implement needed improvements over time. Technological tools and infrastructure appropriate to support student progress through guided pathways. Commitment to the level of strategically targeted professional development that will be required to design and implement pathways at scale. Policy conditions established at the state, governing board, system, and institutional level that provide incentives, structures, and supports for pathway design and implementation at scale while removing barriers. A continuing action research agenda that examines the efficacy of guided pathways and develops practical knowledge and tools to support effective implementation at scale. Next, we'll take a look at the movement toward pathways as a national model. Over the past several years, the concept of guided pathways has spread rapidly through community colleges and four-year institutions in many states and districts. The guided pathways model is based on coherent and easy-to-follow college-level programs of study that are aligned with requirements for success in employment and at the next stage of education. Programs, support services, and instructional approaches are redesigned and realigned to help students clarify their goals, choose and enter pathways that will achieve those goals, stay on those pathways, and master knowledge and skills that will enable them to advance in the labor market and successfully pursue further education. The guided pathways model is built upon three important design principles. First, colleges' program redesigns must pay attention to the entire student experience, rather than to just one segment of it, such as developmental education or the intake process. Second, a guided pathways redesign is not the next in a long line of discrete reforms, but rather a framework or general model that helps unify a variety of reform elements around the central goal of helping students choose, enter, and complete a program of study aligned with student goals for employment and further education. Third, the redesign process starts with student end goals for career and further education in mind, and backward maps programs and supports to ensure that students are prepared to thrive in employment and education at the next level. Although the elements on which it is based are rooted in research, the overall guided pathways model is still relatively new and has not been fully tested yet. Very encouraging preliminary evidence has emerged from institutions that have implemented guided pathway practices at scale, including Florida State University and Georgia State University among four-year institutions, and the City Colleges of Chicago and CUNY's Gutman College among community colleges. Large-scale efforts are now ongoing to implement guided pathways at 2- and 4-year institutions in Tennessee, Indiana, Georgia, and New York, and at community colleges in Arkansas, Florida, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Texas, New York, and Washington State. This work will, in a number of locations, be strongly connected to the AACC Pathways Project. The Community College Research Center, or CCRC, dates the beginning of organized reform designed to improve community college outcomes to the beginning of this century, when policymakers and educators began to question community colleges' low completion rates. The first major initiative in this movement was Achieving the Dream, Community Colleges Count, or ATD, which started in 2004. ATD initially was funded by Lumina Foundation for Education, but subsequently received support from many other foundations. ATD established its focus on improving student completion, equity, and overall community college performance, and was the first initiative to emphasize longitudinal tracking of individual students. From the beginning, there were 5 principles underlying ATD. 1, secure leadership commitment. 2, use data to prioritize actions. 3, engage stakeholders. 4, implement, evaluate, and improve intervention strategies. And 5, establish a culture of continuous improvement. In 2010, ATD became an independent nonprofit organization, but the field learned several important lessons from the first 6 years of the initiative, when ATD had functioned as a grant-funded activity. First, despite the emphasis on comprehensive organizational change, most of the reforms initiated by ATD colleges were relatively focused efforts involving relatively few students, and they were usually directed at only a single segment of the student experience, primarily the intake system and developmental education in particular. Second, while some of these focused reforms improved outcomes for the participating students, the efforts in general were not large enough or sustained enough to influence the overall performance of the institutions. Thus, while focused programs were sometimes successful, they did not typically lead to improved outcomes for large numbers of students. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation became involved with ATD in 2009 through the Developmental Education Initiative, or DEI, in which 15 ATD colleges participated. DEI was explicitly designed to identify specific developmental education pilot reforms at ATD colleges that were improving student outcomes, and to scale those reforms throughout the developmental education population. In general, colleges were unable to achieve wide-scale implementation of their chosen programs within the 3-year timeframe, suggesting that the pilot-to-scale strategy is not an effective approach to reform. The DEI programs also tended to be implemented in isolation from college-level programs and the broader set of support services within colleges. During the latter half of the 2000s, a growing volume of research by CCRI and others established additional knowledge and insights that formed the foundation for further advances in policy and practice. These advances occurred in 3 broad areas. First, the field began to draw insights from behavioral economics to argue that the community college environment was too complex and confusing for students, suggesting that college-level programs needed to be simplified and made more coherent. The implications of behavioral economics research for community college practice was formally articulated in a BMGF-funded CCRI paper, The Shapeless River, in 2011. Second, CCRI and others produced research showing that students who gained early momentum by passing the gateway courses in a program of study in their first year of college were much more likely to graduate than those who took more time to enter a program. Third, research by CCRI and others on developmental education concluded that developmental assessments did not accurately identify students' needs, and traditional developmental coursework did not help underprepared students succeed at higher rates, while accelerated and contextualized coursework held more promise. These findings provided the impetus for the development and wide-scale adoption of co-requisite models, which placed many more students into college-level courses while providing them with the support they need to succeed in those courses. The broader implications of the ATD and DEI experience and related research was that developmental education should not become conceptualized as a separate activity, but rather should be designed into a broader model as part of an on-ramp to college-level programs of study. This became a fundamental element of more comprehensive models. The ATD and DEI experiences, together with the insights beginning to emerge from the research discussed previously, contributed to the conceptual foundation of the Bill and Melinda Gates funded Completion by Design, or CBD initiative, which began in 2011. CBD was based on the following principles. 1, accelerate entry into coherent programs of study. 2, minimize the time required to get college ready. 3, ensure that students know the requirements to succeed. 4, customize and contextualize instruction. 5, integrate student supports with instruction. 6, continually monitor student progress and proactively provide feedback. 7, reward behaviors that contribute to completion. And 8, leverage technology to improve learning and program delivery. Most of the components of the Guided Pathways model, as understood today, were incorporated into these 8 principles. At the time, these elements represented a new and ambitious agenda unfamiliar to participating colleges, and even to some extent to the program organizers and technical assistance providers. As a result, participating colleges were allowed to exercise a great deal of flexibility in the implementation of these principles. In practice, each college chose to implement a subset of principles that most appealed to that institution, resulting in wide variation in the implementation of the CBD model. While not ideal in terms of evaluating a well-defined model, CBD's variety in implementation did provide CCRC with the opportunity to observe the implications of different combinations of these elements. Their resulting report to BMGF suggested that the most successful colleges used the college-level program of study as a central organizing point for college reforms. At the same time, the experience with CBD and associated insights led to the solidification and elaboration of the guided pathways model that is articulated in CCRC's book, Redesigning America's Community Colleges. In addition, CBD created the conditions that allowed participating colleges such as Miami-Dade College, Davidson Community College, Lorain County Community College, and Sinclair Community College to become leaders or emerging leaders in the guided pathways movement. The initiative also trained a cadre of administrators and change management experts who are now engaged in the Bill and Melinda Foundation's recent Pathways-focused investment, the Pathways Project, organized by AACC. Other institutions emerged as leaders in the guided pathways movement, such as the 2- and 4-year institutions under the Tennessee Board of Regents and the community colleges of Chicago, were directly inspired and influenced by the CBD experience. The guided pathways model is based on research suggesting that community colleges and broad access 4-year institutions are currently operating under a cafeteria model that was appropriate to their primary mission in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, which was to dramatically expand access to higher education, a mission they fulfilled beyond expectation. However, cafeteria colleges are not well designed to address the need of today's students who want to enter and complete programs that confer economically valuable certificates and degrees as quickly and efficiently as possible. At cafeteria colleges, the best pathways that students can take into and through programs of study and to their career or further education end goals are not clear. There are too many choices, programs lack educational coherence, and students' progress is not monitored. Research on organizational effectiveness from within and outside education strongly indicates that to substantially improve student completion and learning, discrete innovations, even when they are implemented at scale, are not sufficient. Rather, colleges need to redesign programs and support services comprehensively and at scale to support student progression and learning. A small but growing number of community colleges and 4-year institutions across the country are beginning to see substantial gains in student outcomes by redesigning programs and services to improve the student experience along 4 dimensions. 1, create clear curricular pathways to employment and further education. 2, help students get on a path. 3, keep students on a path. And 4, ensure that students are learning along their path. In summary, this series of important initiatives and accompanying research has yielded crucial insights that have helped form the foundation of the Pathways movement. Now comes the next generation of guided pathways reforms, which will help to deepen knowledge about the efficacy of the model, build the capacity of the community college field for designing and implementing large-scale change, and identify effective strategies for maximizing college's impact on student learning and success. So given all these previous models and previous research, why guided pathways and why right now? College students are more likely to complete a degree in a timely fashion if they choose a program and develop an academic plan early on, have a clear roadmap of the courses they need to complete a credential, and receive guidance and support to help them stay on the path. Guided pathways integrate these and other evidence-based reforms with the goal of ensuring that they become part of every student's college experience. The Pathways model is an integrated, institution-wide approach to student success based on intentionally designed, clear, coherent, and structured educational experiences informed by available evidence that guide each student effectively and efficiently from their point of entry to attainment of high-quality post-secondary credentials and careers with value in the labor market. At CCRI, the Guided Pathways Framework has been utilized to effect transformational change throughout the institution, including the creation of 7 academic and career paths to enhance students' sense of belonging and opportunities for career and future academic exploration and planning. The 7 paths are Arts and Humanities, Business, Economics, and Data Analytics, Communication, Media, and Film, Education, Government, and Human Services, Environment and Sustainability, Health and Health Administration, and Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, or STEM. To see a breakdown of which programs and majors fit into which of the pathways, visit ccri.edu/pathways. In the recent past, CCRI has also undergone a redesign of the application process to include robust career exploration and structured guidance from their first contact with CCRI. Students may still be undecided or want to remain in general studies, but they are now guided to select one of the 7 pathways to help focus their studies and reduce credit waste. Path Days was launched in 2019 to welcome students to their path and build relationships with peers, faculty, and community workforce partners. This fall, Path Days will head online to answer the questions: what does it mean to be in a path? How do I see my path? How do I get support to stay on my path? What careers are possible with a degree in my path? Who are the faculty I will meet along my path? And who are my peers in my path? Virtual Path Days for Fall 2020 will feature live and pre-recorded sessions highlighting career opportunities in student paths, program and major information in student paths, social gatherings with peers in each path, faculty who teach in each path, and supports available to help students succeed. You can learn more about this year's Path Days online at ccri.edu/guidedpathways and click the Path Days Fall 2020 link. And now a little about where we are going in the coming months. The creation of 7 academic and career paths was a huge undertaking for CCRI, and everyone involved should be recognized and commended. This set the stage for much of the rest of the Guided Pathways work to come. Now that the college has identified the paths, it is time to define the student experience under a Guided Pathways model. We will be working toward this primary goal in the coming semesters. One of the most important pieces of this is the selection and onboarding of pathway navigators. This academic year will include the implementation of a new faculty role, the pathway navigators, who will act as concierge to students along their path and work with academic departments to improve the student experience through clear program mapping and embedded workforce experiences. This role will be advertised during the fall 2020 semester with the goal of service beginning in January. Soon to launch in service of all the goals of Guided Pathways reforms at CCRI is collaboration across the college and across campuses via the Guided Pathways Steering Committee and associated working groups. While the steering committee has been identified, work groups are still forming. If you are interested in any of the following, please let me know. Title III Evaluation and Reporting, the First Year Success Course, Guided Pathways Professional Development, Pathway Navigators Onboarding and Planning, Path Days, Web Pages, Guided Pathways Marketing and Communication, Program Mapping, Guided Pathways Implementation Assessment, Holistic Student Support, and the new capstone course. Professional development for faculty and staff on principles of the Guided Pathways framework with special focus on equity and inclusion are a big part of this year's activities. CCRI's first Title III grant is focused on full implementation of the Guided Pathways model, including focus on each and every student having taken part in work-based learning experiences before graduation. We will be working to capture all of the experiences CCRI currently offers students and plan to ramp up offerings to all students in all paths. There is so much more to share about community college reform and student success. I thank you for taking a first step with watching this video, and I hope you will continue through this Phase 1 module that includes foundational articles on guided pathways implementation and opportunities for virtual discussion. If you have any questions about anything in this video or anything else about guided pathways, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.